Thank you, Clarissa, for joining me. Could you please introduce yourself?
I am Clarissa Rios Rojas from Peru. I'm a molecular biologist, and now I'm working at the interface of science and policymaking at the European Commission in Italy. And also, I'm the founder and director of Ekpa'palek, which is an organization that empowers Latin American professionals.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your position and your work right now?
My project right now at the European Commission is to write recommendations for citizen engagement initiatives in the topic of social and ethical aspects of emerging technologies, in this case, genomics and gene editing, and so on. So what I have found in my research so far is that technology goes faster than policies. And sometimes it's really hard to keep track of everything that is happening and to implement the laws and the policies that need to be implemented in order to regulate science as well. So science is, as we know, is research and innovation, but sometimes science goes to the next steps and becomes a startup and becomes a company that offers services that can be used for different reasons and by different type of people. So I've seen right now that there are, for example, genetic testing companies offering a lot of, for example, ancestry testing, health testing, and so on. So it will be good to know who's regulating these companies. Are really experts the ones who are providing the information about your genes? What happens with your DNA once it's stored in their company? Is it stored forever or is it sold to another company? Can they trace that it was your DNA? So these are things that are happening right now, and people really don't know much about it. For example, genomics is also working at the interface with blockchain. So now we are having cryptocurrency that is based on selling your DNA data. So what that represents for business, what that represents for society. Again, the same social and ethical questions. So there are many things that have to be evaluated, but it's important for citizens to know what's happening, where it's happening, and what is going to happen in their society if they accept it.
Why did you decide to take this new challenge?
Well, I think that the European Commission, the Joint Research Center, is the best place to learn about how scientists can contribute to society in terms of policy making. So I thought that this will be the best place to work and learn and contribute to. And I hope that this will be one of the first steps to a lot of work, I hope, into use science-based evidence to create policies and to help policymakers to understand better, not only citizens, but also the science behind every decision.
Why is this relevant?
I think that the biggest problem that I see right now is that scientists are doing science just because of curiosity. And I know that that's the main driver that many of us had to become scientists. But I think we need to build places or spaces where we as a scientists can talk with citizens. We can understand what are their needs. Because, for example, I have seen during my time as a scientist, there are many projects that really don't have any implication in solving anything at the moment. It's just knowledge that is being generated with the hope that in the future it is going to be used. But what if we can relocate not only the money, but the human capital, all the PhD students that are being put into these projects into something that society really needs? I think that we should have a priority table and then having okay, so these are the problems. Let's see how we can, fix the first 100 instead of having 50,000 projects and then just giving money to all the projects and to keep going. I think that basic research is important, but I also think that basic research should be always tailored into fixing something or producing some type of technology. Without that, I think trust in science is never going to be achievable because citizens see this, citizens see that their taxes are being used in projects that maybe never are published, that cannot be replicated, or that is not helping anything in their communities or in their local problems. And that's from one side, but also I see that there is a problem with citizens not learning or trying to have some curiosity about science. I think that they could interact more with scientists, go to the open days of universities, see what they are doing, see where the taxes are being used, and have an opinion about it and learn as well from scientists what they are producing, how are they doing it. And use this scientific knowledge in order to have better decisions about the government that they are going to choose, about the political party that they are going to vote. What are this political party focusing on? Is that correct? Is that based on science, which is the most trustful thing that we have at the moment? I mean, of course, it has its pitfalls, but right now is the best thing that we can work with. And also, like, the citizens should think how to improve science. If they don't have faith in science, so then tell us, how can we improve it? How we can work together, scientists and society and citizens, in order to make science better, achievable for everyone, open, and that everyone can understand it and use it for the best of society and the environment. Because, I mean, sometimes we are just super anthropocentric and thinking about humans, but thinking about the environment, we are responsible, we rather want it or not, of all the species that are around us and the ecosystem and the habitat we have. So I think that we should take our citizens' role a little bit more responsible.
What would you suggest?
I was mentioning before that we should have these spaces where scientists can talk with other scientists, for example, social science, like talk about the ethics. And I know that during the university we have courses on ethics and courses on, well, animal ethics, human ethics, but I think we should have also courses with politics in science, like bring a course where we have like politicians and scientists and understand how, how are we both working together and making things better. Other course could be like scientists and citizens, scientists and society. Another, again, a debate between they both, answering questions from both sides and trying to think how we can work together, because the theory of science is great, but who is doing the science? We humans, with our imperfections, with our poor equipment sometimes, and with the limited knowledge that we have. So I think it's very important for scientists and citizens to acknowledge this, that the scientists are not perfect. They are humans and they have mistakes. And also the equipment, the machines that they use can also have mistakes time to time. But having that as a premise, as a statement, so what can we do based on that, right? And then it's where all these interactions between all the different groups take place. And then we can, all three groups together, think how science can be better, how can have less errors, less mistakes, how can we build trust in science, and bringing all the traditional knowledge into it, and the ethics and the social aspects and everything together. Sometimes we think that a problem has to be fixed just by one expert. Climate change has to be fixed by an environmentalist or by a biologist, but in reality it has to be fixed by everyone, by economists, by lawyers, by citizens, by biologists. It has to be fixed by everyone, because otherwise we are not really creating a solution. We are just fixing a little patch, but not the whole picture.
You just mentioned traditional knowledge, and this is something that very often comes up while speaking with you. Why this interest for Aboriginal culture?
Yeah, well, my dad is from the jungle, from a city in the jungle. Of course, he's not part of an Aboriginal community, but I guess that was my first encounter with Aboriginal tribes. And also when I was working at the ministry, one of the agencies of the Ministry of Environment in Peru, one part of my job was to try to understand the narratives and how to bring the projects that the government had to indigenous communities, how to make them understand, how to make them learn, how to learn from them what they need, what are their priorities. And I think that all these encounters with indigenous communities have made me realize that they are not heard enough. Their voices are not shared enough. Their needs and their priorities are not communicated. So I thought that, for example, Ekpa'palek is a way to promote indigenous languages. Ekpa'palek comes from the Chihuilo language from the Amazon in Peru, and it means to teach a little kid to do the first steps. Also trying to translate everything in our program of indigenous communities is also a way to make it more accessible.
You are the founder of Ekpa'palek. Can you tell us more about this organization?
So we are an organization of around 45, 50 people. And what we do is to offer programs for free to any Latin American student that wants them. One of them is the professional mentorship. So we connect the students with professionals that are a little bit advanced in their careers, so they can guide them, they can talk, they can tell them how they gain some scholarships, but also like what's out there, right? If I'm a psychologist, if I'm an economist, I want to know what's happening in Australia, what's happening in China. So that person can give like inside information, so students in Latin America can shape their minds thinking about what's next and what I should be studying now or working on or doing my internship with. And the second program is women empowerment. And the first year we were bringing new women role models to schools. We had 5 professional women bringing their stories, their pitfalls, their experiences, their adventures, and how they got where they are now. And that worked for 1 year, but after 1 year we had to stop it, and now we have focused more on campaigns online. So we are doing the same. We're showing new women role models, but in a visual way. So we have engineers, economists from different parts of the world that are Latin American women, and then they send a video of 3 minutes telling how they are there, why did they study that career. And the third program will be the empowerment in Indigenous languages. So basically we want that our programs reach everyone. We have started translating the articles of our blog into Quechua, which is a language that is spoken in Peru, in Bolivia, and it's official language in Peru as well. And also we have 3 videos in Quechua as well. We have one of our mentors that made these videos telling how he went from a little town in the highlands of Peru to study in France, to do his master in France, and to study in Lima in Peru as well. So we are trying to promote, to translate everything that we are producing into different language, not only Quechua.
What motivated you to start this organization?
Well, because when I started my professional path, I was a bachelor student that really wanted to learn and to go more from theory to practice. And that was something that in Peru was not happening in terms of molecular biology. So I think my motivation was to learn more. And I could do it. I managed with scholarships, with people helping me to do the next step, as you mentioned. And then after 10 years of doing it, doing my master and my PhD, I realized that I was not the only one, and that the case that I had 10 years ago, where I didn't have money to pursue studies, I didn't have connections to create opportunities in professional development, were still existing in Latin America, and we were in a disadvantage with the rest of the world. So I thought, what can I do with the tools that I have gathered during these years? One of them was my network. So with them, we started the project of mentorship, professional mentorships. And then thanks to that network, it has been how everything started. And that's how we started helping students to find their way, their first steps for their professional development. But I think it was really personal, because it was not that I was trying to fix something that happened somewhere else to some other people. I was trying to help someone like me in this moment, like someone that didn't have opportunities, didn't have the network, didn't have ideas, or didn't have someone from outside to talk to and just get inspired.
How did you become what you are now?
So I studied biology and genetics in Peru. I was very interested and curious about science. Then I went to Finland for an exchange studies, and then I did a master in biomedicine and neuroscience, which I was also completely in love of learning how the neurons were becoming specified in different type of neurons in the brain. And then I decided to move to Australia to do my PhD on sex development, on how the sperm cells and the egg cells develop. And while I was finishing my PhD, I decided to create Ekpa'palek, this organization that empowers Latin American professionals. And then looking at the results and the people that we were helping, I started to realize that a new passion was growing inside myself. And then I decided to leave the lab, to be inside the lab doing experiments, and start to communicate with citizens, with policymakers, and start to find a way where I could use my scientific background and help society in a different way. And in the way will be creating better policies for everyone. Well, now it's in the European Union, but later I hope it will be in Latin America and in Peru.
What is the most important lesson that you have learned?
I started this project thinking that I will help many people, but I'm being helped as well. I'm learning so much. I'm meeting so many people. We're doing so many nice projects outside Ekpa'palek as well. So it has also motivated me to change my career. As I said, like I was working in the lab as a scientist, and then Ekpa'palek happened, and then I started to pursue new paths within myself that make me happy. So I think that I would recommend to everyone, if you always think that there is a problem, you want to fix it, try to do it with one friend, and then it may grow, it may not, but at least you have the satisfaction to learn from it.
What is your vision for Ekpa'palek?
Yes, well, when I created Ekpa'palek, it was only for Latin Americans, but in my wild dreams, it is to have like Ekpa'palek Asia, Ekpa'palek Africa, and then interact with each other. But that is also based on the idea that the brain drain, I think they call it in English, that when professionals or all the talent goes from the south to the north, and then they never go back, or just a few of them. So I was thinking that it will be so interesting that we have like a block of developing countries in the south, exchanging professionals, exchanging knowledge, exchanging what we already know how to do best, and then empower each other, because the south, it also needs to keep growing, to keep learning, and it will be really good to create these alliances between universities, between student associations, between governments, and think about what are the good things and the benefits that can come up from it. Of course, I mean, going to the north and having that technology to learn is really good, but I think that the next step on that path could be like to start doing these south-south collaborations.
And what is the relationship between science and traditional knowledge, in your opinion?
It's very curious that you asked me this, because in my group, my boss has one of the projects is about mapping Arctic communities. So they are mapping every community that is in Finland, Norway, Iceland, US, Canada. And then they are, besides doing the mapping, they are gathering the information that they have and their needs in terms of climate change, their voices about climate change and how that's impacting them in the first place, because they are close to the first places where the impact is being observed, and what they have to say about it. So I think that nowadays it's taking more seriously. And I'm glad to see that the European Commission, for example, is also taking them seriously and writing reports about it and having their voices heard and their opinions shared with policymakers and with people at the European Union. I've seen this here in Europe, but I have not seen them yet in Latin America. However, when I was working at the agency of the Ministry of Environment, I could also see that the interaction between the experts, the biologists, the chemists was really open when they were informing them about what was happening. And I think the efforts are becoming more and more important, and in order to listen from them as well, not just coming and giving a lecture about what's going to happen, what they need to know, but also like empowering them in teaching them how to use the equipment to measure pollution, how to analyze data. So it's their own data that they have analyzed. And also I heard that in Bolivia, if you want to be part of the government, you want to be a worker there, you have to speak one of the indigenous languages. And I think that's important because, for example, for this type of jobs, you can come and speak in Spanish and then you have a translator. But how good it will be if you can speak in Quechua, in Aymara, and hear them, so they also feel more comfortable to share their ideas in their own language. And I think language is a very powerful thing. I'm going to learn more about different type of languages because I think that's the best way to really go into a deeper connection with someone and understand, especially if you're working in this field, and understand what they want to see in their environment, what they want to contribute to the government, for example, in terms of analyzing the data, letting them know when they see like a case of contamination on the river, on the cows, etc.
Do you have a wish or a dream?
Yes, so I really dream sometimes that there is a society where everyone is respectful of everyone, but more than anything, they have empathy. Everyone in this society has empathy that makes them really feel how the other person will feel in every situation, not only in how we interact as friends, but in different geographical parts, how these people must feel, in different social classes, like how these people must feel, what can I do to help this person. I think empathy should be the key factor in this society that I envision. So I think that the society that I dream on is one where there is the feeling of connection and belonging with every single part of this habitat. I mean, not only humans, but plants, insects, birds, the rivers. I mean, the water we drink come from a river. So I think that connection, it's missing sometimes. We don't feel we belong, or we are part of a big part that needs us to take care of it and to contribute to keep going in a healthy way. So I think if that could be spread into all citizens and make them feel responsible for each other, for other species, for the soil, for the rivers, for the climate, I think that will be my second wish besides empathy, that feeling of belonging and connection.
What was the most beautiful day and what was the most awful one?
I think the most beautiful day for me is remembering just to being with my family, having lunch together. It has been something that I haven't had for many years. I mean, like as a daily thing. I had it a little bit when I finished my PhD. I could go back and live again 6 months in Peru with my family. So I think that my most warm and beautiful feeling is that, just to have my mom, my dad, my brother, and now my partner as well, laughing, talking about what happened during the day, maybe complaining about something that happened at the university or at their jobs, and just sharing and being together in a peaceful, quiet place. And maybe the most horrible moment it has been when sometimes I have been in a place where I feel that there is just too much horror, too much darkness, that all the good things really don't compensate all the bad things, and that it's not a nice world. And sometimes I feel that this world is like the hell of someone else, or is the creation or imagination of how hell should be, because I see so many awful things, so much suffering, even though I'm not experiencing it myself. I mean, I'm not someone that is a sex slave, or someone that has been raped, or someone that is just waking up with bombs in their, like 10 meters from them, but I still feel it like if it could be me, and I feel it like that people doesn't deserve to grow in an environment like that. They didn't ask to be born in this world. So I think those have been like the most hardest moments in my life, just to be overwhelmed by sorrow, I think is the word, by sadness, and to think that there is really nothing that we can do to change it. I think, I have had those times as well. Well, I think activists are always in that twilight, right? That you think that everything's can get better if you do something, but also you are in the other side where you think that it's just horrible and terrible, and it's just too much to take in.
And what brings you up?
What brings me up is to see people doing amazing things. Because I'm doing Ekpa'palek, for example, I can be in touch with different organizations and meet people that is always doing something. So then I see them and I think there is hope. There is hope. There are a lot of amazing people doing things for animals, for the environment, for other humans. And then I think things can change at some point.
What is life about, Clarissa?
So I think life is about learning, experiencing all the feelings. Sadness as well is part of it, is part of what we are as humans. I think maybe we should be thankful that we can experience it, although it's not a nice thing, but sometimes good things come out of it, sometimes, not always. And I think it's about meeting other people, trying to be, as Maya Angelou said, to be a rainbow is someone else's cloud, and to try to make happy other people, because sometimes you're sad and the other person can make you happy. Sometimes the other person can be sad, you can make her happy, and just to try to enjoy what we have. I mean, we have I mean, talking as a biologist, we have these fabulous senses of touch, of smelling, seeing. So I just enjoy those things that, our cells can give us, and to learn more about what's happening in other parts of the world, to see documentaries about life of animals, how they interact. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I think those are pleasures that even if you cannot travel, you can see it and you can sort of experience it from far. And I think those things are things that bring me happiness and joy. Besides being with my family and friends, I think also these things as reading books, entering in the mind of someone else that you never met, but they wrote a book and let you, go inside their minds for a little bit, have a taste of it. So, I mean, humans or music, like humans can do music, it's beautiful. So I think that if we focus on those things, I mean, that's what life is, or what life should be.
Thank you so much, Clarissa, for this conversation.
Thank you, Narina.
And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Keep wondering and see you next time again. Bye and ciao.